Welcome to Studio Anvil. This is our Album a Day Challenge monthly review. I am your host, Dan, aka Anvil. This is my co-host,
Izzy. And so, as you heard here, we're doing our monthly review. This is the month of March, and what we're trying to do is listen to one album a day produced in a year from 1958 to 2021. This will continue on to April and so forth until we've gotten every single year. We're just pulling random out of a hat. You can go on Instagram at
dj.anvil
to check out what year each album is and for a more detailed review. Having said that, let's go on to week one.
Day one, we had the Kinks with their album Misfits.
Honestly, kind of forgettable album. I don't remember it too much. Could have been just that it was the first day of the month and it is now the beginning of April. But
I mean, it was okay. They had some very interesting themes. There were a few songs on there that I liked, but
now that I think about it, I can remember a little bit more, but it's still a little bit forgettable.
Not much. Day two, we had Jimmy Eat World, Bleed American.
Just a really good album all around.
Yeah, that was a tough one to narrow down to just 3 songs.
Yeah,
I remember that being kind of a struggle for us. Good album, alt rock. Day 3, we did Bon Iver's Bon Iver.
It was interesting. I don't really know how to describe it again. I think your detailed review might be a little bit better. It wasn't bad. It just didn't really feel like anything too different.
Well, you said earlier to me that it was interesting in the moment. And I thought that was a pretty accurate review. I don't know if I would go back to that one. Then we moved on to the chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra, and his album Come Dance With Me.
Like with a lot of old music, and like older music, they tend to have one instrument that's kind of blaringly loud.
Yeah.
If you've ever listened to it, I'm sure you understand that. And if that's not what you like, it's frankly kind of annoying. It didn't have the calm Frank Sinatra vibe that you kind of think about when you first think of him. Yeah.
And speaking of that singular instrument, the next day we did Bob Dylan's The Free Will in Bob Dylan. Very important album, but
minus the harmonica.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the greatest rock albums ever, but you do have to kind of like grin and bear through some of the harmonica parts.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. Like that overly loud one instrument just is not something we're used to anymore.
Yeah.
I guess.
Then on the next day we did Everybody Else Is Doing It, So Why Can't We by the Cranberries. This is not the album with Zombie.
No, it's not.
But it's still a good album.
Yeah, they were a very influential, iconic band. Unfortunately, they won't be producing any music under their
title.
Yeah, because we lost the lead singer. But great album, really took me back. And we ended the week with ZZ Top Eliminator, which
the iconic
album. Very iconic rock album. I mean, nowadays I think there's a lot more depth to the music, and older rock was more about girls party girls. It was kind of
had a little bit more carefreeness to it.
Yeah, and that's not to say that it was bad, but it is what it is. It's a very rock and roll album.
It sounds like classic rock.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds like it.
And it was a very influential album when it came to the music videos of the days. It ruled MTV. So, it's an iconic album. On to week 2. All right, week 2 started with Simon and Garfunkel, Wednesday morning, 3 a.m.
I really liked that album. I'm thinking about it now. It had some really great songs on it.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Doesn't really sound like them.
No, it had the song Sounds of Silence on it, and that sounded exactly like Everybody Knows the Song. But yeah, they were much more folky at the time. It was
very interesting, and I really like that style on them, actually. I feel like it really worked. It wasn't out of place.
Yeah, this was Simon and Garfunkel has been a part of my life since as long as I could ever remember. And that sort of turned into a theme this week. We sort of bookended the week with 2 of my early...
That was terrible.
Yeah, well, it's a bad pun. So day 2, excuse me, we listened to Andy Black's The Shadow Side.
Yes, that is his debut solo album. He's from Black Veil Brides. Really good, honestly. I wasn't expecting it.
Not Black Veil Brides at all.
Oh,
no. This was... it had almost more of an 80s feel, didn't it?
It did. Even the album cover, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had a lot of good songs on it, really. It had a lot more personal feel compared to Black Veil Brides. I've listened to quite a bit of them, and I mean, they're not bad. That's definitely not true, but definitely night and day.
Yeah, I think personally I would rather listen to his music solo. I.
Yeah, at least now at the point where.
Yeah, I'm a much more mellow guy than I used to be, so heavy music isn't normally my bag anymore.
Now, this is probably the album we disagree on the most.
Yeah, Day 3, Gorillaz, Demon Days.
I really like this album by them. I really like it. As simple as that. Lots of fun sounding songs.
Yeah, but when I was doing research on the album, a lot of it is really some dark themes. So I do give them props for that they can cover dark themes in a way that doesn't feel dark. Because later on in the week, we listen to somebody who is dark and the music is dark, and it's not as good as kind of hiding things behind a kind of poppy, catchy beat, but having that message.
Yeah, you're right. That is a really very strong thing that Gorillaz can talk. They have a lot of songs just about social issues and just more personal feelings.
Yeah.
And they don't make it sound like that. It's not so obvious and in your face that you can't enjoy it as music and not as a message.
Yeah, if you didn't know the lyrics, you wouldn't know how
dark
some of those songs are. Then going on to Day 4 here, we had Sade with Diamond Life, and this is an album I've been listening to since it came out. I love Sade. It wasn't until I researched this album, though, that I found out that Sade is technically the group's name. It is her name, but it's technically the group's name also, which I didn't really realize that. But
they're a group even.
Yeah, I didn't really even realize that it was categorized as a group. I mean, Wikipedia has it as a group, and if Wikipedia says it must be true.
Yeah, of course.
But this is a good album. This is a very romantic album, but at the same time, it's also a very easy listening, smoothed out, vibey type album.
Yeah, every song. This isn't a bad thing. Every song sounded the same, so it was like just an experience of however long it was. It was like 40 minutes, I'm assuming.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
It was just one big chunk.
Lots of bongo drums.
Lots of bongos, yeah.
Yeah, more bongos per capita than any other music other than bongo music. Fun fact.
Thank you.
So after that, I mean, after listening to Sade, of course, you got to move on to Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here."
Great album. I love the 5 songs.
It is really 5 songs.
Yeah, because there's the Shine On Crazy Diamond, which is
part 1 and part 2, or
part 2,
part 38 or something like that. It's crazy. But that's it. I mean, "Wish You Were Here" is an absolutely iconic song. It's an iconic album. One of my must-listen albums. So, that was an easy home run for us.
Yeah.
Day 6, we brought up Don Henley, "The End of the Innocents." This was one of my favorite albums when it came out sometime in the 90s. Again, DJ.Anvil. Look it up. Or you can just look it up at Wikipedia. Either one will have the year, and I'm not going to... I can't remember years. I can't remember years. I remember history, but I don't remember dates.
remember some of the years, but that's it.
But it's a really good album. It is rock, but the themes that they talk about, it shakes you a little bit when you realize that they're talking about things that, from in the past, they're talking about things that still pertain to today, and you think, oh man,
nothing's changed.
We haven't fixed shit.
How is that not fixed?
So I said we bookended with music from my childhood, just completely random. But the Kingston Trio, the godfathers of folk.
I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. It had quite a few fun songs where I was like, oh, wow, I want to listen to it again. That was just interesting.
They were the Skrillex of their day, weren't they?
Yes.
All you Brooklyn Nine-Nine people will get that.
I think anyone who knows who Skrillex is.
No, but I mean, it's a reference from the show Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Yeah, he always tries to compare classical musicians to popular, like he'll say Brahms was the Skrillex of his day, and it really makes no sense. But the Kingston Trio really were sort of changed folk, made it more palatable for
a larger
audience, and most of the folk acts that are still around today owe and acknowledge some debt to the Kingston Trio. And I grew up on them along with Simon and Garfunkel, and that's one of the reasons why, to me, lyrics trump just about everything. because the lyrics are the heart and soul of a song. And that's about it. I guess all I can say now is on to week 3. Okay, so, we've been doing this album of the day, and 2 things that I really wanted to get out of it was, to kind of force us to listen to new things, but also to not really force, but kind of force you to listen to certain albums.
By definition of the word.
Yeah, I really wanted certain albums for you to listen to. That's what I refer to as my must-listen album. Listen album list, whatever. Blah, 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 blah. But Live, Throwing Copper was one of them because it was an album that really just came out of nowhere for me back when it was released. And I loved it, and I always wanted to know your opinion on it.
And I liked it. I'm very good with my opinions. You can see I word do well.
Yes. Explain much goodness.
I think mine was funnier.
Probably, but
Throwing Copper, it was actually, again, a very good album. I believe I liked a few songs off of it. That's kind of how I keep it tracked, because I can't remember.
On the Spotify?
Spotify.
Yeah, so, and then this month, this week, really did have a lot of this.
Iconic?
The goals of the challenge to broaden our horizons and to introduce you to some of my favorite music. And I think we did a lot of that. On day 2, we did Aretha Franklin, her album Aretha Now.
Took us a long time to get there. There was not too much that year, surprisingly.
No, and you can find out what year that was at dj.anvil on Instagram. But, it was also, one thing that was important was that I wanted Izzy to have the same sort of well-rounded experience with music that I've had, because I've worked in music stores. I've been around music my entire life in one form or the other, and so coming up with Aretha Franklin just seemed perfect. And quite frankly, I really miss the old ladies of soul and R&B. And
I was the one who picked it.
Well, so I'm glad you did. But it's
Aretha Franklin. You can't go wrong.
Singing about respect. And real female empowerment, unlike maybe some of today's artists that masquerade as female.
Shall not be named.
Yeah, I'm not going to name them, but they say they're about female empowerment, but they're not. They're about selling records. And Aretha was heart and soul.
And when you were looking at the Spotify brings up the Genius lyrics and some interviews on the TV sometimes. I don't remember the name of the song, but she had some very odd stories.
Yeah.
That were personal experiences that you would, I don't know, unheard of now, or at least very well hidden.
Yeah, it was a very personal album.
Yeah. Going on to day 3, it was Harvest by Neil Young.
This was one of my favorite albums. I used to think it would be one of my favorite albums of all time, but
he messed up. You don't like him anymore?
Well, we've had our differences with
you say it like
statements.
an old friend.
Yeah. Well, Neil Young is an old friend, but also Neil Young is pre-sobriety for me.
So it's hard to listen to.
It is a hard one for me to listen to. I still liked it, but it was.
I don't remember much of it, so I guess that says enough for.
Yeah, it was classic rock, and we've kind of determined you're not a big classic rock fan.
I like it, but the thing is that the classic rock that doesn't stand out just kind of all blends together. Less or more so than modern genres nowadays, where even though all of the bands sound the same, they don't blend in as much.
Yeah.
Then we go on to David Bowie by David Bowie, aka Space Oddity. I don't know why they listed it as AKA, but they did.
That was a strange album. I listened to that way back. I would have been listening to this in the 80s, and I don't remember it being so genre busting in a way. It had so many different styles, and only Space Oddity really sounded like David Bowie.
It really shows that to be a successful artist, you have to adapt to what's around you. You can't just put your pride first and say, I'm going to do this, nothing else. Because if you do that, then you're limiting yourself to something that could be better for you, or just better for other people to listen to.
That's why he's had such a long career, because this was more about the music of the day than David Bowie. And I kind of dug that, because we've listened to more modern albums by him, and he has evolved.
Totally,
that's what you were saying. If a musician doesn't evolve, he dies. So then we moved on to Garbage version 2.0, which was another one that I always wanted you to listen to.
Now I have a question. Mm-hmm. Where's version 1.0?
There wasn't one.
There wasn't one.
No.
Wow.
Version 1.0 doesn't sound as cool as 2.0.
Was that maybe like... Oh, that, you know what would have been really cool? I know I can't do it now. They could have had version 1.0 be the EP with the demos.
Well,
they didn't do that, I don't think.
they should hire you next time.
Yeah.
But that is a good, solid album. I mean, there's so many good songs off of there, but, you know, the trick is to keep breathing. I mean, that to me is one of their best songs.
That's a pretty good life hack.
Yeah.
Keep breathing.
Yeah. And so another album that I always wanted you to hear was Natalie Merchant's Tiger Lily.
I liked it. It was very calm compared to everything else we've done. It was a good change of pace.
Very, very much indie rock. You know, it's definitely one that if you've never heard it, you should listen to it. It's interesting, and it's one of those roots of modern music. The introspective lyrics and a raw honesty is, you know, that was her hallmark. And so we closed out the week with one that I was really skeptical about. Hollywood Undead and their album, Notes from the Underground. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting much either. It was a more modern year, so there wasn't really anything that you could say was a classic, because, you know, if it hasn't been out for that long, it can't really be a classic. And I just picked them because I've had them on my list of wanting to listen to. I've liked a few of their songs, because I just put them on shuffle in general. I was not expecting it to be as good as it was.
Yeah, no.
There was like one or two songs that were a miss, but
yeah,
you can just skip them, you know?
That was a pretty solid album. You know, because, you know, it was more modern. Since it was more recent, you know, we kind of thought we should start defaulting to some of the popular bands that are out there. I mean, you know, the Taylor Swifts, Ariana Grandes, and stuff like that. But we're trying to stay true to ourselves and not jump out of our box too much. But I was shocked by that album. I really enjoyed it, and I didn't think I could enjoy something where the band's name is Hollywood Undead.
They're actually from Hollywood. Well, I guess they're from LA.
Are they the Undead though? Because then I'm not going to go see any of their shows unless I bring like a wooden steak and some garlic. Good point.
Good point.
Should we just move on to week 4 now?
I think we should.
All right, on to week 4. Okay, we're going to start off week 4. It was a very strange week. We came up with some odd picks, and they have these weird connections and weird happenings and stuff. But we started off the week with Gerard Way's Hesitant Alien.
Yes. His first debut album, solo at least.
Yeah, and I had already heard and liked the song Brother. I thought that was a pretty good song because you would play it on the guitar.
That's my cover.
That's her impersonation of her playing the guitar. Oof.
It was... I don't mean to be rude to Gerard. He's a great guy. But it was meh.
So what was better, Hesitant Alien or Umbrella Academy?
Umbrella Academy?
Yeah, clearly.
I think I want to just give I don't know what the word is. Not a warning, a preface. We listened to all of it on the TV, and we have a little sound bar. But obviously, when you listen to something on a speaker in general, it's going to sound a lot more muffly than if you're going to have it directly in earbuds or headphones. So we couldn't really hear the lyrics all that much, so there could have been a lot more to it, but we definitely didn't get it. I don't know if it was just how the volume levels were or something actually within the music. It was...
Yeah, something about it did seem a little bit off.
Yeah.
So then we got 1962, and we were looking through 1962, and I saw a name that I recognized from, I watch a lot of British television. I've heard the name Cliff Richard. And I looked him up on Wikipedia, only to find out that the only 2 acts that have sold more singles in the UK are Elvis Presley and the Beatles. And I said, what? How can he be that big? And I've never heard any of his music.
It is so strange. And he's done a lot of iconic songs. And he has like a whole page of albums on Wikipedia. You can see it's so weird. He's like a hidden gem.
He's the biggest act you've never heard of.
Yeah.
That's what he is. And his music was kind of like the original Beatles meets Frank Sinatra. It was very well sung. It had an upbeat kind of rock beat, but it wasn't overpowering.
It had sweet lyrics. And yeah, there wasn't any... He didn't add any like annoying annoying sounds or anything. It was just kind of easy listening. anyone could enjoy it, frankly. Even though it's very old, it sounds old, but not in a negative way. It doesn't sound like, oh, my grandparents listen to this. It's, oh, my grandparents listen to this.
Yeah, I can see him being the band of hipsters. It was very laid back without being mellow. It was upbeat without being over the top. And I mean, as big as this guy is, who have never heard of him, I'm glad I finally got to listen to him. Really, just wow. So then we I guess we're keeping with the Umbrella Academy theme, and we listened to Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds and their albums Chasing Yesterday, which featured a song from Umbrella Academy. What song was that? Do you remember? Oh my goodness, she's blanking out.
Oh no. Keep thinking, keep talking.
I don't. Talking. I have no idea.
Keep talking. No, just say something else.
She's gonna get on her Google right now.
Talk.
But yeah, it was. You know, I actually like
heat of the moment. The heat of the moment
from Umbrella Academy. But in short, I liked it better than I like Oasis. It was just there was something a little more vibey to it. You know, something that really just
really new.
Yeah, it really did. It wasn't that new of an album. So then, speaking of old albums, we drew 1986. And let me tell you, we're not really bringing up years all that much here. But 1986 is a weird year because you could literally listen to a different album every day for a month out of 1986 and never hear a bad album. Just about all the big acts back then had released something. And what struck me as weird is I'm still listening to our choice, the Pet Shop Boys and their album Please. All of that music that came out that year. And that's the one album that I'm so, and I don't know why. I was not a huge Pet Shop Boy fan back in the day. I liked their music, but I wasn't gaga for them. But somehow, over the years, I've ended up having a copy of every single one of their albums, from soundtracks to EPs to everything, and I still listen to it. They were one of the quintessential 80s bands where they had very solid lyrics, but a very bouncy beat. Yeah,
they're very good with their sound effects.
Yes, they are. Then we went full spectrum, and we came around to Jane's Addictions, Ritual de Habitual.
I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, but this was another one of these albums that I really spent a lot of time with. It was really... But it was from a period of my life that's sort of in the past, and it was weird to hear it again, but I'm glad I did. What did you think?
I liked it. I was kind of zoning in and out at the time, as I sound to be now. I promise I'm here. But it was interesting. I've always mentioned for those type of bands, it's very interesting seeing what was the inspiration for the things that I listen to now, because obviously if Pink Floyd never existed, we probably wouldn't get a lot of the good music that's out now. I mean, we can almost say for certain that bands like Palais Royale just wouldn't be the same.
They wouldn't sound the same, because Palais Royale has a song that sounds just like a Pink Floyd song.
Yeah, and isn't one of them named after one of the members?
It was Doom, Empty Spaces.
I don't remember names very well, but yeah.
But yes, they did have reference, I believe, to Syd Barrett in one of their songs.
No. One of their parents named their middle names after iconic musicians.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. One of their names, excuse me.
Yeah.
So then we went from upbeat music to really...
a downer.
Joy Division with Closer. I mean...
Closer.
Huh?
Closer, not Closer.
Closer?
Yeah, Closer.
Huh. It looks like Closer to me.
Isn't
it spelled the same?
I think so. But...
Well, either way. But, I mean... I don't think there's a more depressing album on the face of this planet, because this album literally came out 2 months after the writer and lead singer of the band killed himself. So this is about as raw and gut-wrenchingly depressing as you could possibly imagine.
There's no joy in this division. No, that was a very distasteful joke.
No,
but yeah.
There was no joy in that division at all. I mean, they later went on to become New Order. But, you know, it's worth listening to because... It is so raw and so in the moment of that despair that to capture it on vinyl like that is...
scary.
Yeah, it reminds me of The Wind by Warren Zevon that he wrote knowing that he was barely going to live long enough to finish the album.
If you've ever wondered if you have anything wrong in your brain... listen to that. See if you can relate. No, that sounds that sounds very dark, but yeah.
No, I mean, if you can relate to that album, you might want to seek professional help.
Yeah.
So then we closed out the week. Yeah, we closed out the week with a young new artist. His name's Charlie Smith from the UK. His album, I Just Want to Sleep. He literally...
Stream it on Spotify or purchase it on Bandcamp.
There you go, like we did. The artist Charlie Smith actually approached me and asked me if I would review his album. I was nervous because I didn't know if it would be good or not. I didn't even know what kind of music it was. But, that's how we roll here. We want new experiences. Good album. Very good album.
Very good, yeah.
Basically just acoustic rock. Very stripped down and raw again. And
it has what a lot of sellout artists lack, just in general, that it sounded good, but it didn't sound overproduced because they were trying to make it something that it's not.
Yeah, it was just right there. It's just like the dude sits down, picks up his guitar, and pours his emotions out onto a plate and says, "Here you go." And there was no fluff or frivolity to it, and I really respect him for that, to just keep it so pure.
Very brave.
Yep. And what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the remaining 3 days of the month. So I guess this is sort of week 5.
Five-ish.
4 and a half. 4 and a half. Week 4 and a half here. So we started off with Get Scared. Everyone's Out to Get Me.
I really like Get Scared. I always have. They're very, very, very interesting. They're kind of in that screamo genre, but they don't have the thing that you kind of correlate with screamo, that
the screams
ruining the song.
The screams ruining the song.
Yeah, you're like, this is such a good song, and then they have a verse where it's just screaming, and if you don't like it, that's very annoying. But they kind of go with like just 1 or 2 words or a sentence, but then they still cover it with the guitars so that it's not so blaringly loud.
It's weird that you say that, because I don't really remember any of that screamo.
That's what I mean. There was just like 1 or 2 lyrics.
It really shows you like what we were talking about music evolving, people finding their sounds. I mean, what's that one band, Bring Me the Horizon? I mean, their metal stuff was great, but Amo, which was a much more stripped down, mellow, modern techno type
then they
sound,
got weird with their next album, but
well, yeah, but as I was saying before. Somebody stepped on my throat. When a band changes, sometimes they find that rhythm or that vibe that they're supposed to be on, and all of a sudden it clicks, and everything that they had to say can finally be put out into music that people understand and want to listen to. Yes. And I think that's what this Get Scared was. I could hear sort of the off-putting, like, but it was kind of put into the background, and they focused on more depth.
Yeah, like if you say metal is them being angry at the world, Get Scared kind of falls more into being angry at you for not fitting into the world. So it has that more
self-anger. Yeah, which was, pretty good. And then speaking of, earlier we were talking about Aretha Franklin, we were talking about, the class and the real female empowerment that went on, and one artist that I always thought really typified the standard for a good empowered female, a strong black female, was Mary J. Blige.
Definitely.
What's the 411? She, her, people like Queen Latifah, who we've reviewed, Aretha.
We've now covered the 3 quintessential.
Oh yeah, but they stood for something. They stood for positive change. And they stood for positivity and consciousness, trying to deliver something.
And just for their realness.
Yeah, and
they
exactly.
Weren't speaking for somebody else.
Yeah, they weren't, and they weren't simply trying to get little teenage boys to like them because they had filthy lyrics.
And even weirder, the next album, the final album, is a modern version of that, I would like to say.
Yeah.
I would genuinely say that.
Most definitely. FKA Twigs being a descendant of Mary J. Blige.
And her album Magdalene, that was the final day.
Yeah, that was our final day. We heard about it because of this lawsuit that's going on with Lil Nas X and one of her songs, Cellophane. And so we said, well, we're looking through all of the people from, what year was this, like 2019, I think? And, there was the Ariana Grandes and Taylor Swift. And we are going to do Taylor Swift at some point. Because I do want to hear her music. But, man, talk about, like, not knowing anything about Twigs.
I knew
going
nothing.
Into it.
I did not such a shock.
And her album cover is completely grotesque.
Oh, it's so weird.
We had no reason to listen to this album. But to say that, what I said at DJ.Anvil was that this felt like modern opera. And to have the restraint and the conviction of character that she has to put out an album that is exactly what she wanted was just incredible. And one of her
so beautiful, yeah.
And she sings about Mary Magdalene, and she was talking about how oftentimes society talks about women being pushed to the background of history, and she tends to look at it as those women were being selfless. And I thought, now that's what little girls should be listening to. Women who believe that even if you're in the background, you could still be important, just like Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, and she was saying how Magdalene, she wasn't powerful because of a man. She did it herself, and she didn't do it for herself, but she did it herself. You know, I don't know if that sounded right.
Yeah,
but.
No, I mean, it was an incredibly good album. I mean, she's still pretty young. I believe she's in her 30s.
Yeah.
But, wow, like, if you really want to just step completely out of your comfort zone, FKA Twigs, Magdalene
is a beautifully mature album.
Yeah, but it's its own little piece of art. And I feel like nobody got to taint it. It was exactly her vision. Or maybe her vision and her team's vision. But
yeah.
I applaud that. We've had some artists, this Andy Black, I think was one of them, Charlie Smith, people who just really stuck to their guns on what they wanted to make and didn't pack it full of all this frivolity.
And it produces something amazing.
Yeah, music is art, and a few of the artists this month, especially Twigs, really prove that music is art.
Let's
get on to the awards. And now, the awards for the best and the worst of the month of March. Here is your host, Izzy.
All right, so we start off with the best album overall. And this goes to Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. Do we have any other contenders on that? Let's see.
I think we had a lot of contenders
on there. Yeah, there were
a
lot, honestly.
There really were. I mean, but I think that one is... I mean, if I could only pick one album on there, I'd have to take Pink Floyd. And then it would be Pet Shop Boys, but we'll get to that later.
Then we go on to the worst album overall, and this goes to Misfits by the Kinks. And our reasoning is not that it was bad. It was that it was the most forgettable, and it just didn't have as much flair to it as some of the other people on the list.
I mean, we had some arguments. I'm not going to bring them up, but I kind of concur. I mean, it's not a bad album, but... if you consider, and I mean, you can see the whole list at dj.anvil on Instagram, but compared to the other bands and the other albums, the Kinks unfortunately take last place.
Then we go on to the most unique album, and this goes to Magdalene, FKA Twigs. I don't even know how to describe it. How she says herself is that people describe her as R&B, but they say that just because she's a black woman, because it's not R&B. It is so weird.
It's modern opera, like I'm saying.
It's modern opera, but it also has some more, hip-hop influences on certain songs. It was just strange. It was an experience in itself that can't fit into one genre.
Yeah, and it's not, and her music is definitely not in either one of our wheelhouses.
Then we go on to the best album for the masses. This was Listen to Cliff by Cliff Richard. And you should listen to Cliff, no matter who you are.
Yeah, I mean, the way we determine this one is if Izzy would listen to it and my parents would listen to it.
Yeah.
And that was a no-brainer. I mean, almost all the albums on here are worth listening to, but really the one that pretty much could appeal to anybody would be the Cliff Richard.
Yeah. Then we go into the most surprising album, and that was The Shadow Side by Andy Black. The reason why this one gets it was also kind of in contention with Notes for the Underground by Hollywood Undead, because we just weren't really expecting much.
Yeah, and I mean, I would throw in the Charlie Smith album and the Twigs. They were all surprisingly good. We didn't really expect it, but I think what surprised me about the Andy Black was there were a few lyrics that he had that really just kind of blew me away and really just was like, what? Like, wow, that kid can write.
Yeah. Then we have our individual favorites. Your favorite was?
Pet Shop Boys, Please. It's a no-brainer. I mean, I've been listening to that album since 1986. I worked in a record store. I had not met Amy yet, and I had just graduated high school.
Speaking of Amy, her pick...
oh, God.
...was The End of the Innocents.
Oh, that's yeah.
And she had also on the paper had circled Mary J. Blige, but That wasn't the one she wrote it next to, so I guess you could say
She was a huge R&B hip hop. Karen White, Anita Baker, Sade, Mary J. Blige, like all of them. Like Amy was all about that.
And I forgot to say what her worst one is. Would you like to take a guess at what off-camera Amy's worst is?
I probably don't want to even know. But you know what? I have a feeling this one won't offend me.
It was Notes for the Underground Hollywood Undead.
Really?
And she doesn't like wordy stuff as much, as we've already found out.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And then my individual favorite was FKA Twigs Magdalene. She's gotten so many awards, this one.
Yeah, deservedly, yeah.
Yeah, it's the only one... Yeah, it's the only one that I've listened to completely new off of here that I'm still listening to. Because I've heard a bit of Get Scared album. I heard a bit of Andy Black's. For quite a few of the people, I've heard some of the songs off of it. But hers was a real shocker. And then the final award is what is the most genre specific. And we mean what album would only specific people like. This is the opposite of the album for the masses. And you could have guessed if you looked at the list, we picked Closer, Joy Division. If you are not a fan of low energy, depressing music, Joy Division is your nightmare.
Yeah, you're never going to like this if you're not into that kind of music. But as I've always said, and I'll say it again this week, we really got to do the list in the reverse order. Start with the genre specific, end with the best album. Let us know what you think in the comments below. So that's it. Any final thoughts?
This is a pretty strong month, and doing the year each is quite interesting, because then we can say we've listened to an album from every year since of those years.
From 1958.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? I encourage you to do the same, because, you know, we all have to study history, and the history of music is just as valid. Yeah, and, you know, start off slow. You know, find out who your favorite acts listen to when they were your age.
Yeah, just try doing maybe even a song from them. You don't have to listen to the full album like we're doing if you don't have the hour-ish assigned.
I mean, you can go to dj.anvil on Instagram and find out what the 3 best songs of each album are.
And then just listen to those. And if you like them, listen to the rest. If you don't, cool, you listen to it. And
the best thing I could say is, out of all of these albums that we've listened to, most of them contain songs that can literally save your life. And since both of us take mental health issues seriously, you know, that's one of the reasons why some of these groups are as loved as they are by us, because they talk about those inner struggles. Yeah. You're
right. I'm looking at the list now, and a lot of them had very deep lyrics that could actually be helpful.
Yeah, because even still at my age, I still struggle with inner issues. It doesn't
go away, really.
No, I mean, and you want to know something? The truth of the matter is, the older you get, the stronger your demons get.
Yeah.
And there's some demon killers in here. And, yeah, hey, that's part of the reason why we're doing this, because music is so damn important.
Yep.
And you're important, and thank you for listening.
You know what else is important? Liking and subscribing.
Yeah.
Just kidding. You don't have to.
That's my business manager. You guys have a good one. Bye.